on this week's edition of In Focus.
Thanks so much for joining us. A busy week ahead on the campaign trail and in the nation's capital with Super Tuesday right around the corner. Former President Trump looking to essentially close out the race against Nikki Haley. He already has a big lead in delegates, 122-24. And this week he learned he'll stay on the ballot here in Indiana, while the Supreme Court won't make a ruling on his immunity claims till the middle of the year. All this as 16 states go to the polls on Super Tuesday in the biggest day of the primary season so far. You see them here in red on this map where they're voting Tuesday. All of that comes just 2 days before a big night on Capitol Hill for President Biden. The State of the Union this coming Thursday, just days after Congress avoided a government shutdown for now, while also getting news of a big shakeup in party leadership. Let's start with Raquel Martin, who has a recap from our Washington bureau.
It's time for the next generation of leadership.
Wednesday, Senator Mitch McConnell announced he's stepping down as the Senate Republican leader at the end of the year.
To serve Kentucky in the Senate has been the honor of my life. To lead my Republican colleagues has been the highest privilege.
The 82-year-old has served as a Senate leader longer than anyone else in history.
Never could have imagined that happening when I arrived here in 1984 at 42.
The news traveled quickly from the Senate floor to the White House. President Joe Biden spoke highly of his former Senate colleague and characterized their decades-long relationship as an honest one. Shortly after McConnell's speech, Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins praised McConnell for showing leadership.
For stepping forward when it wasn't popular.
McConnell's popularity recently sunk among Republicans after he worked with Democrats to pass a compromise bill to send aid to Ukraine without addressing the border.
It was inevitable. I mean, he's been here since the mid-'80s. I respect him as an individual because that's what he wanted to do. I just disagree with some of the policies.
McConnell says he will remain in the Senate until his term is up in 2027 and will work with his party to elect a new leader in November. In Washington, Raquel Martin.
Raquel, thanks. Of course, Senator Braun, who you saw there, is also in that crowded Republican primary for governor, one of 6 candidates in that race. By the way, we'll be releasing a poll on the race for governor next week. We'll have that right here. Also, later this month, we'll be hosting a debate live in our studio, the first Republican debate in the race for governor, Tuesday, March 26th on our stations across the state. You can submit a question for the candidates on our website at fox59.com/debate. Next week, we'll be talking with some of the candidates for governor here in our studio, including Senator Braun, who will give us his reaction to next week's State of the Union address. No doubt one of the big topics will be the ongoing war in Israel. This week, Indiana Congressman Andre Carson among those calling for a ceasefire.
Once again, we stand here for humanity. We stand here once again for those who can no longer stand for themselves.
President Biden making news on those talks throughout the week in his quest to reach a temporary ceasefire there in the Middle East, along with a hostage release. Meantime, here in Indiana this week, we learned both President Biden and former President Trump would stay on the ballot for our state's May primary, with the Indiana Election Commission hearing dozens of challenges to keep some candidates off the ballot. State House reporter Hannah Adamson highlights the decisions the Election Commission made and how they could impact the Indiana primary. Hannah?
As the nation waits to see how the United States Supreme Court will rule on Trump v. Anderson, the Indiana Election Commission voted to keep the former president on the state's Republican primary ballot.
Lawyers for Trump's campaign in Indiana argued the commission did not have the authority to remove him from the ballot. The man who filed the challenge said Trump did not qualify under the 14th Amendment due to his actions on January 6, 2021. Commissioner Karen Celestino-Horstman agreed with the challenger, arguing Trump's actions were tantamount to insurrection. However, the chairman argued the decision should be left up to the voters and that Trump had not violated Indiana law. The commission voted to dismiss the challenge 3-1. In the race for governor, Jennifer McCormick will be the only Democrat to appear on the ballot after the commission disqualified Tammy Dixon Tatum, arguing she had not gathered enough ballot signatures. Dixon Tatum's counsel telling the commission the rules surrounding gathering signatures have continuously disadvantaged candidates for office who are black women, a notion the commission vehemently opposed. In the race for the U.S. Senate, Republican John Rust will not be on the ballot after facing 6 challenges. Commissioner Celestino Horstman said because of the Indiana Supreme Court's decision against Rust, the commission's hands were tied. Rust had previously said if the state did not rule in his favor, he would take the matter up with the U.S. Supreme Court.
A challenge to remove Joe Biden from the ballot was also filed. However, the Election Commission dismissed it after the challenger failed to show. Reporting from the newsroom, I'm Hannah Adamson.
Anna, thank you. In a statement on the Senate race challenge, Congressman Banks said, quote, "This doesn't change anything for me and my campaign. I'll continue to work hard every day between now and November 5th to be Indiana's next conservative Republican senator." Recently, we spoke about the challenge process with Banks and with Rust, who's already asked the Marion Superior Court to reverse this decision. He says if necessary, he plans to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. Are you prepared to take this further to the U.S. Supreme Court, perhaps? Where do you go next?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we will take it to the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. This is very important.
This guy doesn't belong anywhere near the United States Senate. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we beat him in the May primary and then be Indiana's next conservative senator after the election in November.
Of course, now Rust not on the ballot currently. There are 2 Democrats in this race for Senate. We spoke with Mark Carmichael last week. You'll see more of that interview in a moment. This week, I also spoke with his opponent in that Democratic primary, Valerie McRae. You attempted to run in 2022 as well. Got the signatures to qualify this time around. Why do you feel like you'd be your party's best choice to run for Senate this year?
We need a change. Enough is enough. With the status quo, we're going backwards. In a lot of different things, especially women's rights, especially with human rights. So we don't want to go backwards. But I got into this because I'm a psychologist, right? I'm a psychologist and I'm in the trenches. I work with people that have to overcome tremendous obstacles. I work with veterans of war. I work with people that have been shot, and so the gun issues and just the everyday issues come in the door as well, the affordable housing, those sort of things, and those exacerbate mental illness as well. So for me, running is being practical. When your phone is ringing off the hook and say, "Doc, can you take another client? Can you take another client?" After a while, it's like, how can I affect the most people by correcting policy in Washington? That was a decision I made.
So 2 candidates on the Democratic primary and now just Representative Banks on the Republican side. What do you make of his time in Congress so far as he now looks to move from the House to the Senate?
I'm looking to make sure that doesn't happen, I'll tell you that. We don't need that type of energy. We've had enough of the negative energy, enough of the pulling us backwards. We just don't need a Jim Banks right now. We need a Valerie McRae. We need a psychologist in office right now. We need someone who can really think of things from a totally different angle.
What would you bring to Congress if elected, and what issues would you want to prioritize?
Of course, women's rights is always a priority, but affordable housing. I mean, these are the everyday things. People are being priced out of the housing market. That's causing a lot of stress. People are having to work longer and harder and not being able to make their ends meet. So wages have not kept up with the cost of living in any way, shape, or form. But I've always been also a medical care for everyone. It doesn't make sense that we still have these high astronomical prices to get health care and medications. It just doesn't make sense in an economy in America when we know and we see other countries that are doing it and they're doing it well.
What lessons will you take from your time in the State House to this run now for U.S. Senate?
Well, I think my time in the State House is interesting because I went in the minority. Before I ran against the Speaker, the Democrats had 39 votes and came out of that election with 48. So it was almost 50-50. So the Democrats gained a lot of clout, but we still had to learn how to work with Republicans to get things done. And then 2 years later, we were at 50-50, perfect tie. And again, we're all working together to get things done, produce a budget, and do things for the state of Indiana.
U.S. Senate has been at a 50-50 tie, but not many would say they've been working together in a lot of ways, right? What's the difference?
Well, I think one of the problems is Trump. He puts too much pressure on the Republicans. Another problem is gerrymandered maps. When you have a gerrymandered map, the primary is your battle. And the primary turnout is very small compared to the general election. So a small group of rabid people can control a primary. And I think that's what we're seeing on the Republican side, is that Trump and the MAGA crowd are determining the outcome of the primaries, which means when you get to Washington, you can't compromise, because if you're caught dealing with the enemy, then you might very well get primaried in your next race. And so they're paralyzed with fear. They're afraid of their own voters.
The gerrymandered districts obviously play an impact specifically in the House where they have districts, but you're suggesting maybe that dynamic also spills over into
it
Senate
doesn't really spill
as well.
over. I mean, you can't gerrymander a whole state.
Right.
But you still have to work with members of the House. And right now, the House isn't doing anything. You know, the Senate can't operate by itself. But I think what we need to do is continue to try and send people to Washington who are willing to work together.
All right, more on our website. Coming up next, we'll talk with our panel about the upcoming Super Tuesday primaries and about the impact of the Supreme Court taking up Donald Trump's quest for presidential immunity and what that means for 2024. Then later, the compromise at the State House to keep the blue line alive in Indianapolis. Stick around. We're back after this.